what I want to do right now is just show you some of his work that I really like. We're going to start with work made in 2010 and move up to work that was made in 2020. So this will be a 10-year span of his work. I just want you to notice like how it's evolved, how it's developed. Mostly what I want you to sort of take in is when viewing his work, get your initial impression, like when you see it, what it feels like the initial like, whoa. And then look a little closer and start to break it down and be like, all right, what is that piece made up of? And I think that's really how we want to approach this project. So this is a piece made in 2010. If we take the color out of it, it's a bunch of prism shapes. They're like, instead of having square bases, they have diamond bases, but the process is the same. And then it's just how they're arranged. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're placed in an array of 6. What's special about this is that it is the same shape over and over again. It's just one shape used in different orientations. Whereas this piece is very densely packed. It becomes about the texture that gets created by the repetitive piece. This piece is doing something else. So if we zoom in more, you can, oh, look at that. You can even see the pencil lines on the canvas. We're using pieces of similar shapes. You know, when you look really close, these are more intricate. These are pentagonal prism. Here's a diamond-shaped prism. We got a whole bunch of little ones down here, but it still comes down to assembly and layout. So it's very densely packed and textured here, and then he has the courage to space them out as they go up here, and it creates kind of a floating, lifting feeling. And that's just about how something is laid out on the paper. So if that's something you want to explore, you can absolutely do that. This piece uses similar shapes, but lays them out densely packed again, like puzzle pieced together. And what's impressive here is the use of scale. We have tiny ones, we have big ones, and how they all interconnect together. If we look at just this piece right here, it's more intricate. We have 2 short sides and 2 long sides. That's more than we've done, but you can see where our techniques could go. And then, right? Like, look at that. When you really delve into it, we have these elongated prisms, and then star shapes, and then the pentagonal shapes, and the 6-sided shape. There's a lot. When you really get into it, it's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? When you consider what it takes to make this central element. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it takes 12 of those things just to make that center element. And then when we zoom out, oh my goodness. And that's it. Like there is something to be said for doing something well and then doing it well repeatedly, which is why I work so hard, which is why I hounded you to just make a cube really well and to just make a pyramid really well. This takes it farther, but we have begun. I love this one. This one is so beautiful, and I'll show you a simpler one of this in person. But like, so you look at it and you just think, wow, you know, it's static here, and then it kind of flares out in all directions there. What do we get when we look at it? Down here in the corner, that's almost exactly what we've done. That's almost exactly a pyramid. And then as we move along this axis here, it's as if the pyramid just tips over and over and over and over and over. So we get that beautiful splay. And as we move up the y-axis, it's like it tips forward, 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 forward. We have the same motion going in both directions. And this is where I'd kind of like you to go with the project. I want you to make a bunch of shapes and figure out what kind do you want to make. You know, do you want to make really normal ones like we've done, or do you want to start to experiment with a bend, with a little bend, with an extreme bend? Like, what do you want to do with it? And then as we go up the diagonal axis here, look, it tips in both directions. So basically, each one of these pyramids is different. Well, is that true? That might not be true. I think maybe this pyramid and this period might, those two pyramids might be the same, or they might be mirror images of each other. You know, when you really look at what's going on here, it is fascinating. And then here's another take on it. These are hexagonal forms, but whoa, look at the movement that comes in by just varying them a little, you know, by sequentially varying them a little bit. You get so much motion and so much movement. Here's another one in that series. Look at how that the layout creates that twist, that spiral. That is extraordinary. And then, honestly, I like these more. Like, for my brain, I can look at this and just marvel at the gesture. I look at this and I almost get like, oh my goodness, there is so much going on. But I think that begs the viewer to just look at it longer. You know, the longer your eyes travel around this, the more you see, and the more you're like, oh my goodness, that is so well done. Initially, I see all the hexagons, and then as I look longer, then these little star shapes start to pop out, and like the logic of why this is laid out the way it was becomes clear. A lot of the things we've seen have been very symmetrical, and then you look at this, and it's not. You would call it a rosette or what you would call it, but that sort of becomes your focal point, and then things radiate out from there. And then this sort of bold use of this would be negative space. You know, positive space is where stuff is, like up here, and then negative space is where stuff isn't. So to place things like that and just leave all this empty paper and have it be okay. Here's why I think it's successful. If we look at it, it's very densely packed up here. Your eye goes here, and then you see how we have this sharp point right here? That kind of points down. So when you look at it, your eye starts here and travels down, and it activates the space here. And then this one, it comes to a point and points out here. And this one points down here. And this one points out here. So while the space is empty, there's physical things telling your eye, like, hey, look here, look here, look here. Even though there's not stuff, there's something telling your eye to go there. And it psychologically kind of fills the space, which is so clever. Oh, I love this. Using mirrored paper adds a whole nother element. It's still the same thing. I think what makes these super successful is the beautiful seam lines that go down the whole thing. And I love this one. Can we zoom in a little? Yes, we can. How cool is that? And just break it down to forms. Break it down to forms that you could learn how to make if you were so inclined. I'm not saying copy him, but I'm saying it's okay to be inspired by somebody and to want to emulate what they do. Where it gets shady is if you try to make money off copying somebody else's work. Look at that. If I remember right, this is ink, like paper that has been ink washed. So not ink to very ink down here, but these forms get more interesting, don't they? Using the white outlines to trace that, I don't know how those are made. I think it'd be really fun to figure out how to make that form, but look at the intricacies of the paper. You can definitely see where they were painted with ink or watercolor. You know, you have this hard geometric forms, really angular, and then you have this flowy, beautiful texture on the paper. And to my mind, that makes something really successful, because combining flowy and angular at the same time is just brilliant. And then, come on, like how cool is that? And these might be interesting to explore because you have variation, but it's only in one axis. It's not in all axes. I'll show you in AutoCAD how you might make something like this. This could be something more doable than the other pyramid one. I just think this is beautiful. I don't really have anything to say except look at that. You know, and doing as much as you've done, like look, you can see a tiny little seam right here. A tiny, like, look at how tight they are, how precise they are. That you kind of have to marvel. After doing what you've done so far, you sort of have to marvel at this a little, don't you? Just like, oh my goodness, it's so cool. These are so making two pieces that fit together, and we have positive space and positive space. And then the part here in the folds, which is negative space, is equally active. There's a lot going on here, like these curves, like, oh my, I can't even imagine. Huh, right. They're pyramids, just with points that go in different directions. And that's really what I want you to do, is explore how to make things go in different directions. And then that's just something else. Oh, I love these. In a static, like, it's a three-dimensional sculpture, but look at how much movement is in there. This flows down here and flows up, and flows down and over and up. As your eye travels around it, there's just so much movement. The point of each of these things is telling your eye where to look next. And so try that. You know, if you start here with your eye, my eye kind of travels up and around and out. You know, and just your eye flows with where the points are telling you to go. So you as a designer, you as a creator, you can control what your viewer does by putting points in. Like if you point in a particular, you know, if you put an object with a point in a particular direction, people's eyes follow points. They follow lines. They follow tapers. Start here and just kind of gaze over it, and you're going to go down, around, and up. Can we zoom in? How marvelous is that thing? Someday, I will own one of these. Right? Like, come on. Oh my goodness. So we go from, I think the angle of tilt remains the same, but we have a tiny one down here that grows to a big one up here. And let me get my head out of the way. All right, then the angle changes here. So we go from angled over to up, you know, as it moves across. And then it does this beautiful bend back. Like this, I think this is the best part here. How this comes down, around, and back up there. Just movement, you know, movement and a static object. And then this is something else. And again, we're also going through time and his development of his process and his techniques and how he expresses it. But like, look at the softness and colors and those choices. And then the bent forms. I don't know how to do that. I can't teach you how to do that. If you're interested in it and want to experiment, that's awesome. You know, maintain the square base and figure out how to do these super elegant forms. That's above me right now. I'll be trying to figure it out because I want to know how to do that. And if you're inspired, do that. Try it. Try and fail. Try over and over again until you get something where you're like, haha, figured it out. That's awesome. You know, for me, when my proudest moment, like when I figured this one out, actually prouder than that, when I figured out how to do this one well. When I was like, I want to make an L-shaped form. This is one of the proudest things I've made in the past few months, because I was like, all right, I want to have an L-shaped base, and then I want to have a top that's clean. Every edge is folded, and it's clean, and it comes together beautifully, and it's strong. This is what I'm proud of. And this is so far from what all this is. Like, I can't even imagine. So I'm going to take this one win for now. If this is exciting to you, try it. Try and figure it out. Like, change your thinking. And there's another one in the same style. What do you like better? I think I like this one better. Okay, if I could have one, it would probably be that. Like, if I could have this in my living room, this is part of the Unholy series, and I just marvel at it because the initial hit, when you look at it, you're like, oh wow, and then the more you look, the more you're like, oh, look at how many are in there. Like, when you look at how tiny these are to how big they grow out here, and look at what the forms are. They're not you know, that's not a pyramid. I don't even know what that is. And I think that's the excitement in this, is when you start to appreciate someone's work and you start to try and work in their style, and then you see them do things where you're like, I don't even know. The amount I know, which is, you know, like, I've been practicing this. And then you see that and you're like, whoa, that's really exciting. And then forms with open ends. You could do this. So we go from small to big. You get a much more of like a wiggle in the line. I don't know how to approach this. I mean, maybe approach it like making something like this where the tops get cut off. I don't know, but you could. I think these are super beautiful. When you look at what the forms are, you're capable of doing this. You could figure out how to do this. Oh, I love that. This is very similar to this one, just with the forms treated differently. But look at how tight it all is. Like, when we look around, fold, 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 and then there's the seam line right there. It's so clean. Do you feel like you appreciate it more now since you've tried to make just basic forms? Like, when you look at these more complicated ones, are you like, oh my, that is so good? I hope so. I hope you've at least taken that much away. So that's it for the slideshow I want to do. I didn't want to take too much of your time. I just want you to run through a 10-year period in his life. And this is just one series. He's done other stuff as well, starting with fairly easy forms and evolving over time, you know, and just playing and experimenting and trying things. And will they all be winners? No, but what I want you to do this week is make something. Make a bunch of pieces and then assemble them in a way that works. Or make a plan for how you want the pieces to be laid out, then make the pieces that fit in there. What I'll show you in AutoCAD is some ideas basically for plans that I made, and then on those plans, you can put different pieces and play with different layouts. So mostly, I want you to start producing. I want you to start making pieces. I'll talk more about that soon, but pyramids like this, maybe make 6, maybe make 12. Angle ones, maybe make a dozen of these. Pyramids like this, wouldn't hurt to make a bunch of those. Cubes, if you want, or not. You know, maybe you want to knock out an octagon. I can show you how to do that. Some hexagons, those are good too. We'll start to play with that. I'll be back with more in just a minute.